You're live.
Good evening and welcome to the October 25th meeting of the Auburn Board of Selectmen. This meeting is being recorded. Is there anyone else in the audience also recording? Seeing none, can we stand for the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Under public comments, we have one who signed up. It's our own DPW Director, Joanna Paquin. So, Joanna, if you want to come up.
Good evening. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to introduce our new Assistant DPW Director and Sewer Superintendent, Nick Schwartz. He comes to us from the private sector. He was a project manager at Ty and Bond, and he focused on sewer infrastructure design, so it's a great fit. He started about a month ago, hit the ground running. He's covered so much ground in learning about the department, and he's already making a huge difference, so he's going to be a great asset. I don't know if you wanted to...
Thanks for that. Joanna, hi, it's nice to meet you all. I'm Nick Schwartz. So, as Joanna said, I'm the new Assistant DPW Director and Sewer Superintendent, and I'm super happy to be here. So it's nice to meet you all. And that's it.
Great.
Welcome aboard.
Thanks for coming in to say hi.
I gotta say, it's great to have Nick on board, and I'm sure you can see the look of relief on Joanna's face now to have help in the department. So, and I also want to thank a number of people who were involved in the whole interview and selection process. And I think we made a great choice, and Nick's worked out great. He has his first department head meeting tomorrow with us, so we're all trying to get back. And I'm glad you took off your mask so we recognize you, because
Yes.
Otherwise you'd see him again in the halls and say, who was that guy?
Right.
So thank you, and again, welcome. We're very excited to have you. So.
Yeah, I don't know if board members have anything specific, but
Thank you all.
all right, great. Thank you again for coming in, taking the time. We really appreciate it. All right. Can I have a motion to move up agenda item 5D?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous.
Chair, thank you. Adam Menard, our town planner, is just going to give you an abbreviated version of a presentation that he made last week. We did have a pre-town meeting here on Monday evening. And for those of you who are watching this, we do have the link on our website, and the slides are on our website. So if anyone wants to see the full presentation, they can log on. It's a YouTube video that. So we do have Adam tonight to just go over, his whole presentation last week was on 3 zoning articles, but tonight he was just going to go over Article 22 because that's the one on your agenda. Thank you.
Adam, before you start, I'm going to run over and try to make sure that everyone watching at home can see it.
Sure.
This took a little bit last time.
They did a great job.
You have to make this one the...
Many hats of chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, this one is the presenter, so it should already be named presenter. Yes. Okay, Adam, if you can just approve that. Perfect. Getting better at it. All right. You should be all set. Dan, you can see that, right?
Why are we getting feedback here? The sound's off on this thing.
Yeah. I just muted you and it's still.
Muted. Unmuted.
It's off, sound's off. You good? I think we're good.
So. Nope.
Muted.
Yeah. I think it's actually this one's picking me up.
Unmuted.
So I think if Scott and I stay quiet, it's coming from this one.
Muted. Unmuted.
It's everyone except.
Muted.
I think if this one stays muted, I'm not sure if audio is still going through to everyone watching. Dan, can you still hear us? Yeah, I think if I mute this one, it's audio all comes through this one. Yeah, hopefully it won't pick up anything.
Unmuted.
Good. All right. I'll just go with the feedback. Good evening. My name is Adam Menard. I'm going to talk to you briefly about the dimensional regulations.
Muted.
Sorry.
No problem. If the computer should be muted up there, is the computer muted on that one?
So you can mute this one then.
Oh, okay. You want me to mute the? Okay.
Yeah, you can.
The sound just goes to the telephone.
Oh, yeah, I've been muting the telephone. That's how I've been stopping feedback.
Good? All right, let's try again. Good evening, my name is Adam Menard. I'm here to talk to you briefly about the
This conference
dimensional
will now be
proposal
recorded.
in front of town meeting tomorrow night. So I'm going to just fly through this presentation. A lot of it is extra stuff from the other zoning proposals. So I'll start by saying zoning is foundational to community development because it dictates land usage. It's obvious that provision must be made for changing the regulations as conditions change or new conditions arise. Otherwise, zoning would be a straitjacket and a detriment to a community instead of an asset. And that line is in quotes because it was written in 1926 by the U.S. Department of Commerce, which was shortly at the end of the Second Industrial Revolution. So they were very much aware of how things can change at that time. And 100 years later, we're entering into what's considered the Fourth Industrial Revolution with the dawn of AI and 5G and all of the new technologies we're hearing about. So I'll briefly talk about economic growth. Entrepreneurial ecosystem is key. Human investments drive new economic growth, strong social capital, strong quality of place, and a dedication to progress. Auburn is fortunate and they really capture all of these, but the height regulations is looking to really capitalize on the dedication to progress. New industry requires different business buildings that are currently allowed in Auburn. Right now, The tallest buildings are allowed are 25 or 35 feet, depending on the zoning district. 25 feet is about the height of a Cape house. 35, maybe a large colonial. All the warehouse space you see in Auburn, that's about 35 feet. There's a reason all the buildings are kind of low the way they are. So we want to try to be proactive with this change. We want to attract new business, modern business. There's a changing economy, changing market, there's shrinking retail. We acknowledge this, and we want to try to capture some of the new businesses that are arising out of the ashes of the decline of the retail, which include high tech, the 5G, AI, life sciences, which is a huge boon to Massachusetts right now. We want to make sure Auburn can capitalize on that. Auburn has distinctive resources, the interstates, the access to Worcester, and already has a strong industrial base. So the proposal, all the proposals really have come out of many planning projects over the past few years, and a lot of public feedback that went into all these various planning projects. The master plan particularly, there was a survey that went out. We had almost 600 respondents that provided the administration with a great deal of information, and all the boards that participated in the master plan, the economic development plan, the housing plan. There's lots of public meetings creating these plans. Yeah, many public meetings. The master plan committee met regularly for several years. There was a survey. Zoning bylaw review committee meets regularly. Planning board, economic development committee all meet regularly. And there's currently the open space and recreation plan is being updated. They've been meeting regularly since last December.
Adam, can you hold on for a second there? I just got a message from Dan that
Sure.
or not from Dan actually, from someone watching that says that there's no audio being broadcast. Okay. Now I'm getting conflicting. Okay. Well, if Dan can hear, then I think we're fine. All right. Sorry, Adam. Go ahead.
That's quite all right. So the change in dimensional regulation proposing didn't just come out of nowhere. As already stated, there were many planning initiatives, great deal of public outreach, and we do hear from residents and developers on a day-to-day basis about what they're looking for, what they'd like to see in new business, and what developers would like to come in and have for new business to make sure Auburn remains thriving. So there's several reasons why we're looking at vertical instead of horizontal. Less land need be used by a sprawling structure. The density goes vertically instead of horizontally. Land is at a premium. Density helps pay for services. For example, you don't need as long a roadway on a big subdivision. If you have an apartment building that's, say, 50 feet tall, you don't need to have a road that runs a quarter mile. You have a 100-foot road. Same with the sewer infrastructure, the water infrastructure. All this infrastructure costs money to maintain and to service over the years. So going taller does save money, preserves open space. These height requirements would not impact any residential district. They're looking to be the same, looking to have 35 feet across the board with residential to allow a bigger house. And it's only the business districts and the industrial districts that would have 80 to 110 feet, depending on the permitting. The permitting still go through all the required boards and committees, planning board, zoning board, board of appeals, depending on the structure. They'd still have to conform to landscaping, parking requirements, lighting requirements, setback requirements. There is wording in this proposal to limit how close to a parcel's boundary they can go. It's a 3 to 5 foot step. So every 3 feet up they got to go out 5 feet. So we're trying to make sure that it's not encroaching on any neighbors. Want to keep that in mind. Also say that there's really only a few parcels in town that could really support a really tall building because of the parking requirements, because of the landscape requirements. I'll just add, many businesses are looking for taller buildings, whether it's distribution, manufacturing, biotech, and high tech. Westboro just got a robotics business from Amazon going in. These businesses all want to build taller instead of wider. So here's a couple images. We're talking about the image of the apartment complex, not the skyscraper. This is a picture of Northborough Crossings, where the Wegmans is. This was just built a few years ago. This is kind of what the aim is, to have a neighborhood-like setting for residences, not just a random skyscraper in the middle of Route 20. This is an example of what a 60-foot tall building could look like. It's just an example. There are no business, we have no applications looking to go. This was a simple rendering done by the fire department to help people have a visual of what it may look like. This is 824 Southbridge Street. And there's another rendering. This is 201 Washington Street of what a 90-foot tall building theoretically could look like. Again, nothing is planned to go here. It's just an example. Sprawling, low-density growth creates long commutes, creates bedroom towns with no sense of community, consumes natural resources, damages the environment with air and water pollution. So the intent is to create strong, healthy communities that are walkable, have mixed uses, preserve green space, and creates a strong economy. This is a picture of downtown Hudson, one of their newer redevelopments. One concern we've heard about is fire protection. Fire department does not have a problem with going higher. They don't use their ladders to try to get to the top of a building. They use their ladders more horizontally. And in point of fact, they're on board with it probably because of stronger building codes for taller buildings. These building codes start at 70 feet, which include better sprinkler systems, the smoke control. It's easier to clear smoke from a taller building than it is from a horizontal building like the mall where the smoke just spreads. So the fire department, I'm not going to read through all this, fire department is on board with, they can currently combat, God forbid, any fire that would occur with their current equipment. So this is an example of some of the horizontal buildings. It's Home Depot and BJ's. They're very large structures. It's difficult for the fire department to get to the middle of these buildings if there was an incident. And if you turn these buildings on end, they're 400 feet tall, 385 feet tall. They're already extremely large buildings. Most tall buildings don't have that area. They're a bit denser in area and then go vertically. Community input, we didn't just decide on this stuff on the spur of the moment. We had a great deal of community input. We always value people's input. It's the community's town, it's Auburn's town. So that's kind of how we got here. There's a couple of pictures in front of you, some more renderings of what a building could look like, Southbridge Street, Washington Street area. And there's a picture of the mall, which is an extremely large building. It's as tall as wide as the Empire State Building is tall. To give you a sense of how big a building it is. So that's the presentation. That's kind of where we got here and why we're looking to make this change at town meeting.
Thank you, Adam. I'm going to try to unmute this again since this is how I'm going to communicate with Dan. So hopefully this works.
Unmuted.
So I'll turn it over. Do board members have any questions? I just mute that. I might be able to kill it. Okay, and I think we should be all set now.
I have comments, possibly questions. First off, thank you, Adam, for being here under the circumstances. I appreciate it. And I did have some questions, but you hit them all. The biggest thing, for me was being a past member of the planning board. I know that they looked at this in a lot more detail than we're looking at it here tonight. And given the fact that they approved it and those various other entities, I did have concerns about solation or the impacts of solation on neighboring communities, but when you give me the 3 up, 5 out rule, I think that will address a lot of those issues. And certainly importantly that Chief Coleman's here tonight, that the fire department has no concerns with it. Did any other DCG, did anyone have a problem with it in terms of the department?
We didn't specifically take it to DCG, but we did work with a lot of people in DDIS.
Okay.
And they were all on board with it.
Okay, all right. Yeah, that's all I got. I had some concerns, but you've answered all of them, so thank you.
Other board members? Questions or comments? Mr. Carpenter? Okay. I think, oh, there we go.
Hello.
Now he's unmuted.
Thank you, Adam, for being here, and I'm glad that I was looking at this new one that you provided, because the original one didn't have the second page which talks about the offset. So that answered a lot of my concerns as well, because I noticed a lot of the communities that you referenced in your letter to town meeting members had a lot of these. So I think that's a great improvement. The only concern, I'm still concerned about the 80 to 110 feet. 60, 70 feet, I'm okay with, but 80 to 110, I'm a little nervous about. When we talk about an extension or an addition to a pre-existing building, is there a requirement? I recall in the past that there was something in the bylaw about meeting a certain threshold before certain things came into play. Will this language at the end of your proposal be the same?
I think you're referencing the modification of a site plan, and how there's, whether it's a major modification or a minor modification. I think any height would trigger a major modification public hearing. If you're gonna, even a 2-story building, doubling the height of that building, to me, is a major modification. So they'd have to go through the full site plan process.
Okay, thank you. As I said, I'm still not in favor of the 80 to 110. I think that's too high. But we'll see what the board does.
Other board member comments or questions? Mr. Berthing?
Not to, thank you, Adam, for the presentation, and not to put the chief on the fireman's line here, no pun intended. I know he's here for something else, but the 80 to 110, our ladder goes to,
Sorry, I didn't catch the, no.
I saved you, Adam. Good evening to the board. Mr. Berthium, our tower truck is 95 feet.
90.
But as you know, when we operate the ladder, we're looking at a ladder more on a horizontal.
Yeah.
We're never operating the ladder in a true 90.
Correct.
So it's a question we get often, when somebody says, well, we don't have any buildings in town that are 95 feet. What do you need a 95-foot ladder for? Well, the reality is we could go to a fire tonight on Central Street, and depending on where the house is situated on the lot, we still may not be able to make the roof even with a 95-foot ladder, on the horizontal. So our ladders are for reach. They're not for height. Just to expand one more, just to kind of talk a little more about what Adam was talking about. If in the building code, if you build a building beyond 6 stories, it triggers certain things within the building code. The fire rating within the building changes. It goes to a type 1, which is the highest fire rating you can get. Improved smoke systems for eliminating smoke from the building. The fire ratings, again, change with the sprinkler system. So sort of in totality, taller buildings are actually designed safer. If you had to give me the choice as to whether or not I would want a mid-rise building or one more box store built, I'd tell you I'd take a mid-rise any day of the week. As Adam pointed out here, the problem with the box stores is that they're very long, they're very deep, so it makes things a lot harder to control whether you're talking about fire or smoke. So even though we may be building a building that we're not able to put the ladder up, get on the roof, again, the systems within the building, whether it's staircases, and then the standpipes within the stairways, those are all things that make it easier for us to sort of work in the vertical versus the horizontal. So again, we do not have an issue as a department. Our fire protection engineer in the fire prevention division, Josh Donovan, worked close with planning, did those renderings. So fire prevention division, we do support this.
Thank you. I thought that was important for everybody to hear. It's one thing to say the fire department doesn't have a problem with it, but it's another thing to understand why they don't have a problem with it. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate that. Ms. Ripley?
Yeah, hi Adam, thanks for being here. Do you know, has Auburn lost out on economic development because of our current height restrictions?
Sorry.
Has Auburn lost out on economic development because of our current height restrictions?
Adam, you may want to pull that blue thing closer to you. I know that helps with audio when, at least remind notice when watching the meetings.
Thank you. It's tough to say the specifics. We get inquiries all the time about, different empty lots. They're not always that forthcoming with what they're looking to do, but I know a couple specific instances with aerodynamic digester was looking to go in, and that's a much taller. It's an electrical facility basically creating electricity out of food waste. They ended up not pursuing the 190 Washington Street property because of the zoning. It's tough to say yes, but I would assume there has been some instances of it hurting economic development.
That's everything, thank you.
That was actually going to be one of my questions. Do board members have any other questions or comments? I just have one, since that was already asked, and that's, have to forgive me if you touched on it when you were doing the presentation. I was trying to find a way to make this work out a little bit better. Attracting, you mentioned tech and AI, and this would be part of it. Can you go expand on that a little bit as to how this changes to the zoning bylaws might help attract that sector or that?
From what our research is, myself and the Economic Development Quarter have been kind of looking at what other towns are doing and why they're doing it and what businesses they have attracted recently. Westboro and Shrewsbury are two prime examples of they've attracted a lot of these modern businesses. And they have, one of the things is they have updated table of uses, which is what the other proposal we're looking at, and they allow taller buildings. Charlton allows 110-foot buildings, probably because they attracted an Amazon distribution facility. So we would be, to specifically attract these businesses, first we would have to have the zoning changes, not just the dimensions, but the table of uses, which allow these types of businesses, and then we'd be active in trying to, outreach, work with the Chamber of Commerce, maybe to try to attract some of these businesses. There are vacant parcels available. The mall, maybe they need help to market this year's location that's been vacant for a while now. We want to keep these any vacant buildings or parcels. If they look like in the commercial district, we want to try to make sure that they're used the best that they can.
Thank you. Appreciate that. And thank you for coming in and giving the presentation before the board.
Welcome.
If I can,
Oh, sure.
if you don't mind, I'll jump in and echo. First of all, thanks, Adam. Great job. I'll echo what Adam had mentioned, and it's been a couple of years, but early on, before we had an economic development coordinator, I was the point of contact for companies seeking to come here and meeting with businesses and developers. And I did hear feedback that we were running out of larger parcels here. We don't have larger parcels, and with a height restriction, they can't locate on a smaller parcel and go up. And that primarily, and this is probably 5 years ago, was pharmaceuticals, medical instrumentation, as well as healthcare-related fields. So they were looking for smaller footprints with a higher density and a taller structure. And again, it's because we don't have that much land available anymore, and a lot of these companies want to be here. We have great access, we have great workforce, we have, it's a center of everything in Central Mass, access to airports and workforce development and intellectual capital with all the colleges, yet we don't have that many parcels. So our parcels are limited, and right now, not only are they limited by footprint that you can put on that parcel, but they're limited by the height of the building that can go on there. So we are definitely at a disadvantage when attracting some of these types of businesses that need, 60,000 square feet, and we can't accommodate 60,000 square feet. So, thank you.
Thank you. All right. No other board members have questions or comments. Is there a motion regarding Article 22 of the town meeting warrant?
I'll make a motion to vote to recommend approval on Article 22.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded to recommend approval to town meeting. I want to do a roll call vote because it does seem to be a delay with when we hear Mr. Carpenter, so I don't want to take a vote and then not get his vote. So by a roll call vote, Mrs. Ruffley?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
No.
And chair votes yes. So it's 4-1. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
Moving on to our regular agenda, we have Yangxing. Is there a representative from the restaurant on the call?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Attorney Chin, just trying to get my camera going.
Great. We can see you. Thank you.
Okay.
With that, is there a motion to open the hearing?
So moved.
Second.
By roll call vote, Mrs. Ruffley?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Welcome, Mr. Chin. Would you like to tell us a little bit more about what the application is for?
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm here on behalf of Yangxing Auburn Inc., which is a new entity formed for the purpose of taking over the ownership and the management of an existing restaurant, which is located at 90 Auburn Street in Auburn. The applicant is looking for approval of a TV license, entertainment license, liquor license. Those licenses exist currently with the present owner, but with the transfer, my clients will be looking for approval of themselves to operate this restaurant. We intend to continue the operation of this Asian cuisine restaurant. It's fairly sizable. There are more than 75 seats, 295 seats actually, and it's over 12,500 square feet. The clients do intend to purchase the property as well as the building and to operate at the same time. They have other significantly sized restaurants in Massachusetts, which they currently operate. Those restaurants include entertainment as well as full liquor licenses. So they do have significant management experience and operational experience with these types of restaurants of this size. The operating hours were listed Monday through Thursday, 11:30 to 10. Friday, 11:30 a.m. to midnight. Saturday, 11:30 to midnight. Sunday, 12 o'clock to 10 o'clock. I do see my clients on this call, but they have not opened up their camera. So they would be available if you have any specific questions for them that I'm not able to answer.
Thank you, and I should have specified that the first motion and what we've opened the hearing for is just for the transfer of all permits, on-premise and alcohol beverage license, before we actually go to the common victular license, excuse me. But that said, do board members have any questions or comments? Mr. Berthium?
So it's just my understanding that nothing is changing, we're just, other than the transfer of the ownership. So the Yongxing already has all of these licenses, we're just transferring them.
That's my understanding. Any other question or comment from board members? Seeing none, are there any abutters or members of the public with question or comment? Seeing none, is there a motion to close the hearing?
Second?
By roll call vote, Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes?
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Is there a motion on the transfer of licenses?
I'll make a motion that we approve the requested transfer of license for transfer of on-premise all alcohol beverages license at 90 Auburn Street for, from Yongxing, Auburn. Does it say who it's, who the new one is? There's like, no, there's a 9, there's a number. Yeah, is that right there? Oh, all right, so I'm just gonna say, to the applicants. So from Yongxing to the applicants.
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded by roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you, Mr. Chin. And under communications, we have none. Board of Selectmen general items. We have the common vicular license and indoor entertainment license for the new owner and management of Yongxing at 90 Auburn Street, Auburn, Mass. And enclosed in members' packets are the documents and recommendations of the DCG. So, do board members have any questions or comments as it relates to the new owner and change of management?
I'll make a motion that we approve the licenses, provided that all applicable requirements of the state and town and any of its departments, boards, and commissions have been fulfilled. Said licenses are subject to all the conditions stated upon them. Failure to comply with any and all of the conditions shall invalidate the licenses and render them null and void, and with the conditions of the DCG to be placed on the licenses.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by a roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes?
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Mr. Chin, thank you for coming on. Congratulations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, members of the board. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Gone to agenda item B, we have the approval and vote on maximum useful life of department equipment authorized to be borrowed determined pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7. And I'll turn things over to the town manager if she wants to.
Agenda here.
Thank you, and I'm going to turn it over to the Assistant Town Manager and the CFO to explain this.
Just remove my mask here for a minute. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this item. I just want to update the board relative to our recent borrowing of $5.365 million. And so that issue is comprised of the following.
which was provided in your packet in advance of tonight's meeting. Just to summarize what we went to market for, we had, let me correct that, $5,585,000, of which $102,000 was for school improvement bonds and equipment for the school department, $92,000 for Packagug school improvements, $150,000 for the school department school iPad initiative. We went out for sewer bonds in the amount of $300,000 for Bancroft Street Bridge. There's a pipe under that needs to be replaced that crosses over the Mass Pike. We also have $2.2 million of sewer bonds for a bypass line on Route 20 that ties into the Pinrock pump station. We had school building rehab bonds of $360,000. Various departmental equipment throughout town, $385,000. $1.2 million for the Auburn Street Road and Drury Square Road project. $96,000 for an LED streetlight project that has already been completed, but we had short-term notes on that. And FY21 CIP of $700,000. So the net debt to the general fund is roughly $3,085,000 when you take out the sewer bonds, which is funded through the sewer enterprise fund and user fees. We had a bond rating review with Standard & Poor's on October 13th. I can say that went very well. They reaffirmed our current rating at a AA+. It was about a 2-hour presentation. I'd like to thank everyone who was involved in that. It was a lot of work, and we put a lot of effort into that rating. Quite honestly, we thought we positioned well for a AAA rating. I think what's holding us back is our wealth factors that are determined through the U.S. Census and data that's compiled through that mean. Then, post the rating, we went out for bids. And I'm happy to say that our TIC, our true interest cost percentage was just under 1%. It was 0.99 and change. That's a fantastic rate. We're very happy about that, and quite honestly, that translates to savings to the taxpayers of this community. A, because our rating was reaffirmed at a AA+, and two, the economics of the rate itself, we have never seen rates that low before, so that's good news. As a result of that, we're here tonight to ask you to sign the about 10 bonds, which is identified in the cover sheet, identifying the denominations and the interest rate and the maturity dates of each one of those bonds. So the town clerk is here to witness the signature. Our town treasurer is here to present the bonds to you. I just want to also say that there is a new requirement, was just made aware of me today. There's a requirement that the Board of Selectmen review this packet here, and they have to sign off that they read this and agree to it. We try to get this to you in advance, but was unable to do so. You can still take the vote tonight. We're going to hand this out to you. We're going to ask if you could read it and sign it and get it back to us by, is it Monday of next week? Yeah, maybe by Friday of this week, so we can get it to the financial advisor. I think there's a delivery date of Monday. So with that, I'm going to hand this to you and send that down.
Do you want to do one at a time?
Okay.
Do we get this electronically also to get a copy of this copy?
Sure, I think we can get that electronically.
Yeah, through
If
the
not,
chair.
we can scan it and get over to Selectmen Carpenter. So the board is going to have to read the vote on the useful life of the equipment. And as provided for here.
So, do board members have questions or comments? Mr. Berthium?
Looking down page 1 of the vote of the Board of Selectmen, interest rate, it's showing, year 2022 through 2026, the 5% down to 2%. Just curious, if we had gotten a AAA, what would those have changed at all?
So remember, this is a gross. We had a forced premium on the bonds that's used to offset the rate, and it boiled down to 0.99. Yes, if our rate was something less than a AA plus, you'd see a higher interest rate on these bids. Which means we would be paying more in annual interest cost on the bonds that we secured.
Had we gotten the AAA, they would have been a little
Conversely, if we have gotten a AAA rating, we would have seen a lower rate.
lower than 0.9?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members?
If I may just add to that, theoretically, that's how it works. So if you have junk bond status, then the bondholders are taking a risk by buying your bonds. So there's a premium that the town would have to pay in order to sell those bonds. So a AA plus is one shy of the best rating you could get. So yes, that does pay, there is a benefit to that and does pay dividends to the town.
To the chair, if I may, too, I just want to point out to the board that, again, to repeat what Mr. Kazanovich said, we received this today from bond counsel. They got it to us late this afternoon, actually. So we did recognize that you didn't have time to read this, but basically you're just acknowledging that you've read this. Obviously, a lot of this are the financial aspects of it, but where you would sign would be on page S-1. So it's right after page 10. So rather than have the board, it's our understanding, a vote of the board was not required. It's just individual signatures, rather than getting them all on one sheet. If you want to just sign that and leave it with us on Friday, we can put all the sheets together, and it will be the equivalent of the board acknowledging it all. Again, this is a brand-new requirement that we were just made aware of this afternoon.
So we're not going to vote on this?
You're voting, yes, you're still voting on the useful equipment and on signing, but you don't have to vote to sign the acknowledgement of this package right here. This didn't require a vote, it just requires a signature acknowledging that you received it and you looked at it.
Any other questions or comments from members? So is there a possibility of not taking the vote on the bonds tonight and giving members time to read through this packet, or is there really no reason to delay the vote on the bonds?
There's no reason to delay. You actually have to take that vote tonight in order to effectuate that transaction of the bond sale.
Okay, but the vote and signing of the bonds
Yep.
won't tie us to anything that's in the packet that we just received, right? Okay. All right. Last question that I have is, so since I have no financial background at all, and a lot of what you say, Ed, goes over our heads, what's the interest rate of 5% that I'm seeing? How does that relate to the interest rate that we got from having a AA rating? So in other words, you said that we had I think it was 0.99, yeah, but we're seeing 5% here, and why is that?
So the result of the bond sale, we forced a premium. That premium was $900,000. That $900,000, a portion of that we have to set aside for the future use of capital items, okay? Before you could take it in as general fund revenue, now there's a set aside. There's also a premium that's being used to offset the interest rate. So when I say TIC, it's a true interest cost. And what they're using is the value of the interest rate offset by the premium boils it down to a 0.99%.
Great, thank you. since there's no other questions or comments from board members, is there a motion? Oh, and actually, I should say, so this is the vote that we have to
Yes.
take on the full, right? So the member that makes the motion will have to read, is this two separate votes? No, that I'm getting.
All the voted ones?
No, I believe you have to read the whole thing, it's my understanding.
Since we're taking two votes, vote on maximum useful life. Are we just reading, yeah, it would just be page 1 and 2?
You have to read pages 1 and 2.
Okay.
So
You want to draw straw?
I'll make a motion that we vote that the maximum useful life of the departmental equipment listed below is hereby determined pursuant to General Law C-44, is that Section 7, -1, to be as follows. On 5/4/21, Article number 4, School iPad Initiative, borrowing amount of $150,000, maximum useful life 10 years. 5/4/21, Article number 4, School Equipment, Technology, and Furniture, borrowing amount $102,276, maximum useful life of 10 years. 10/27/20, Article number 3 was Parks Department bleachers, $10,000, maximum useful life 10 years. 10/27/20, Article number 3 was School iPad Initiative, borrowing amount $150,000, maximum useful life 10 years. 10/27/20, Article number 3, School Equipment, Computers, Desks, etc., borrowing amount $200,000, maximum useful life 10 years. October 27th, 20, Article number 3, Cemetery Department, zero-turn mower, borrowing amount $10,000, maximum useful life 9 years. Further, to vote that the sale of the $5,365,000, should that be 385, did you say, Ed? Or is 365 okay?
$5,365,000.
Okay, $5,365,000, general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2021 bonds of the town dated November 4th, 2021, to FHN Financial Capital Markets at the price of $6,136,635.16 and accrued interest. If any is hereby approved and confirmed, the bond shall be payable on November 1st of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. 2022, $565,000, interest rate 5. 2023, $565,000, interest rate 5. 2024, $560,000, interest rate 5. 2025, $560,000, interest rate 5. 2026, $560,000, interest rate 5. 2027, $560,000, interest rate 5. 2028, $555,000, interest rate 5. 2029, $555,000, interest rate 3. 2030, $465,000, interest rate 2. 2031, $420,000, interest rate 2%. Further vote that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated October 14th, 2021, and a final official statement dated October 21st, 2021, each in some form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be hereby ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further vote that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as set forth in the official statement. Further vote that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with Section Rule 15C 2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update such procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds and to comply with the relevant securities laws. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. Do I read the last one? I further certify that the votes, I think that's Deb,
yeah.
right? Would that be you? So I don't have to read that?
Right, I think so anyway.
Second?
Good job.
From everyone, thank you, Mr. Murphy. I think you're
Yes.
for never making a motion again.
Goodness.
And I did just talk to the town manager while you were reading all of that. So that would cover agenda items B and C. Yeah, we could have broken that up for you, but you were on a roll.
Exactly.
So we didn't want to stop.
We didn't want to stop the flow.
So we appreciate that. Anyway, motion's been made and seconded by a roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey,
Yes.
Mr. Berthium,
Yes.
Mr. Wren,
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter. I did get a note from Dan that he was stepping away, so I don't know if he's come back yet. Try one more time. Mr. Carpenter. Okay. The chair votes yes, so that'll be 4 with Mr. Carpenter not taking a vote. You can just step aside for a moment. No, do we need to?
Yeah, we need to
actually have
sign those.
that. So actually, how would that work if you would?
Hi. Do I get to sign first? Do I get to sign first? Thanks.
Just the first one?
Yep, the first one.
There's a second one here. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah, I see it. Yeah?
Scott is actually in the second, third, fourth, fifth.
I've been told by the big ass.
I'm just thinking I'm trying to keep up with you, but Scott Wren is a lot shorter than Tristan LaLiberty, so.
Yep.
Especially when it's this. Scott Christopher right now.
No problem, thank you. Oh, you're good. Basically, we've found what Chinese having to do after. They were fine with
Just the one here, Scott?
Last page. So? Oh, no, there's still more?
Thank you.
Okay. Got about 10 today. Yes, you too.
Up to you.
All right, in an effort to get the chief out in case of an emergency, can I have a motion to move up agenda item 6C?
So moved.
Second.
Dan has stepped away. Asked him to let me know when he's back. I'll just do it by, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Chief, welcome.
Go there. Good evening. Thank you. If you don't mind, I'm going to take this off so I can talk. So thank you. So as many of you know, on November 6th, I was hoping to dedicate the new training tower to Chief Roger Bellhumer. We're going to call it the Chief Roger Bellhumer Regional Training Facility. So when I had set the date and we were looking to do everything, it never dawned on me about the policy that is in place for naming buildings. I am aware of the policy. As you know, I serve on the board for the Auburn Youth, so I was involved in that when we named the AYFS building after Mrs. D'Angelo. But it never even dawned on me that that policy was going to pertain to this type of facility just because of its use. But the town manager and I and Mr. Kazarovich, we had a conversation and sort of, talked about the whole thing. And I think we all sort of came to a consensus at the end that, at least in my opinion, that's why I'm here tonight, that I don't think that it was ever the intent of that policy when we're talking about naming public buildings, things that, the community has access to and that the community could enjoy, was meant to, be used in that way to, to name training materials or, training buildings that are used specifically by departments, especially in this case, it's a regional facility shared with 10 other communities. So I would like to stay with the November 6th date. We do have local, state, federal officials coming, so we would like to stick with the November date, just so we're sort of beating winter, at this point. So I'm here to ask the board for your support in, I guess, sort of declaring that the training tower would be exempt from the policy, as again, I don't think really that was anyone's intent.
And thanks, Chief. If I could just add also, there's a clarification that made me realize that I don't believe this policy applies to this also, and that is that it's not a building, and it's not a facility. Specifically, when we applied for the federal grant to do this project, there's a requirement that it not be a stationary building. It has to be portable. So the training tower can be moved at any time, whereas a building cannot be. So given that it's a movable piece of equipment, I completely concur with what the chief said, and I think that was the last piece that I heard, and I said, well, it's not a building. It can't be a building under the grant. So I'm comfortable with it not being subject to that policy.
Board members have any questions or comments? Mr. Wren?
From a procedural standpoint, I completely agree with you. It's not a permanent structure. It just doesn't meet the criteria for that. And then secondly, Chief Belhumeur was a great man, great family, so you absolutely have my full support, and I assume the board's as well. But I don't think we need to take a vote like you said.
I'll just add that, like Mr. Wren, I'm in full support of it. Chief Belhumeur was my chief, and he was very instrumental in the entire District 7 being formed. So I think it's an honor for us to be able to call that the Chief Roger Belhumeur facility, and I'll be giving a yes vote to that.
Since seeing as there are no other comments, I just got a message. Mr. Carpenter, we're on agenda item 6C. If you missed that, I didn't see at what point you came back. So if you have any questions or comments, jump in. But I'll just say, Chief, yeah, I agree. I thank you for reaching out to members and letting us know in advance that, that this was a question, so we had time to review the policy before this, and I agree with you and the town manager and everyone else here, and it's great to have a facility named after our former chief, the late former chief. So thank you for that, and I'll definitely be in attendance. Mr. Carpenter, do you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I don't think the policy was contemplating a structure of this kind, even if we agree it is a building, even though it's movable, whatever. It is a regional facility, so I would just suggest that going forward we adopt some language just to make it clearer what it is that we're talking about. Buildings and structures, or whatever you want to name after someone, is totally under the control of the town of Auburn and not a regional facility or anything of that type. There might be a policy, 10 towns would need to say something. I will say that, as is my habit, I am not in support of naming buildings or anything after people. It is not against, Chief Belhumeur, but I will be abstaining from anything to name anything after anybody. I just think that this belongs to everybody. And, but if we were to name something, certainly he is one of the people that is deserving.
Thank you. So I don't know, I guess we still need to take the vote, so I'll entertain a motion to, actually, I don't know if we do. Yeah, vote in support of the dedication to former Chief Roger Belhumeur.
I'll make a motion that we vote to support the dedication of the fire training tower on West Street to former Chief Roger Belliamo.
Second?
Motion's been made by Mr. Berthium again and seconded by a roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Wholeheartedly, yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
I'll abstain.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you.
Say that correctly?
Yes, you did, yes, thank you. More formal invitations will be coming out for all of you, but we look forward to seeing all of you on Saturday, November 6th. So thank you very much for your time.
At what time, Chief?
11 a.m., 11 a.m. on the 6th.
Thank you.
Thank you, have a good night.
Thank you.
All right, back to regular agenda. We have an annual vote on the schedule of fees and fines. So with that, I'll ask Darlene Coyle to come up. Members have the list in their packets.
After this one, and open up the open space, because Adam, we can go back to So, through the chair, on it, just for our new members also, on maybe several years ago, we redid and we had an omnibus rewrite of all of our general bylaws. And as part of the general bylaws, at the time we had done it, we looked and saw that a lot of the fees and fines had been very outdated because they hadn't been looked at for, 10, 15 years. So part of the general bylaws at that time that were approved stated that each year, rather than putting the fees and fines actually in the bylaw and having to go through a whole process of amending a bylaw or every time you needed to amend a fee, the Board of Selectmen would vote each year, and that vote happens to be October of each year, to just vote on the schedule of fees and the schedule of fines. And every year we circulate it to the department heads to ask if there's any changes. Sometimes Mass General Law dictates a change. Other times it's just our costs are not being covered by the fees that we're charging. So I think last year we might have had one change proposed by the building commissioner, and this year we have a couple of changes proposed by DDIS. So that's why Darlene and Amy are here to talk about what those changes are. Other than the ones they're going to talk about, everything else would remain the same.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening. So for the annual review of the fine and fee schedule that the Board of Selectmen reviews, we do have several proposed changes, and they are in your packet. We're happy to go over those and just review and take any questions. So overall, the first document that I would have you look at is the fine schedule under the general bylaws. So for the fine schedule, we have both a dog rabies vaccination violation. Currently, it is $25. We're proposing 25 go to 50. And additionally, in the same venue, we have a cat and ferret rabies vaccination violation going from 25 to 50. The reason for those changes, we have noticed over the past several years, a lot of the violations that come into the purview of Amy as animal control officer is this violation. So it is in an effort to bring awareness to it, and also consistent with tickets that she may have to issue. So the ticket is typically a $50 ticket. So we're trying to make that more in line with what we would issue for a violation. Questions on that particular one? No? Okay, I'll continue forward. And then next we have, under the animal hoarding violation is currently $50. And we are proposing to change that to $100. Over the past several years, we've encountered challenges for animal hoarding. Animal hoarding obviously presents a whole bunch of challenges for our department, the animals, the people, the facilities, everything involved. We've had a significant situation that we dealt with in the past several years, and this is, again, more in line with just making sure that the public understands that animal hoarding we take seriously. And then finally, the last fine change, this is actually adding into the schedule because of the new bylaw in place for the plastic bag reduction. We did not have a means for handling the enforcement for any offenses. So we do reference it in the bylaw, but just as we have done with the change in the bylaws of how we're doing that, we're not putting any fines in the actual bylaw. We put it in the fee and fine schedule so that it can be changed as needed. So this was something that I know the board had spent a lot of time on. It's not something that we are looking to, penalize heavily. We want education to kind of lead this, which is why it's set up for first offense, a written warning, second offense, $50. And then if we're in the stage of third and subsequent offenses, then it ramps up to $100, a little bit more serious. So that is only a change in the fact that we're adding it into the fine and fee schedule. I can, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask if board members have any questions or comments. If you weren't finished, go ahead. Questions or comments?
I have two things. One is with the bag being so new, would we be able to add a first verbal, second written, third? It just put a an additional kind of, being that it's new and being that you're kind of like, okay, we told you, now we'll give you a written notice. What are your thoughts on that?
I appreciate the suggestion. We can certainly put that in. I can tell you that we have and we are spending a good amount of time with businesses to kind of go through that verbal education.
Verbal's already there.
Yeah, so I think that, we've had a lot of businesses already comply, and I know you're probably seeing a lot of businesses with the compliant paper bags or a plastic bag, which is more than 4 mils. And our staff has already hit the pavement and seen a lot of compliance, which is a great thing. So I feel like the written part of it, the verbal part is already taking place. I know that it was the board's intention to move this forward after a period of the pandemic, kind of, giving businesses a reprieve. But now that we are it is in effect, and trying to continue that effort to kind of move people forward. Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Unrelated to what you were addressing, it just caught my eye though. The unsafe building code violations, that's state sanitary code, like bad conditions in units, things like that. Is that kind of a catch-all?
On the I believe that falls under the building department. So Caleb has issued some of those, and that is when it's so serious that we need action taken.
Landlord-tenant context,
I'm sorry?
landlord-tenant context, where tenants would call if they have bad conditions in town to have you guys come inspect? Is that what the kind of fine we're talking about?
So tenants can call the Board of Health, and we would do a housing inspection under the state sanitary code. And then we go through the process of identifying any housing violations, prepare a written order, make contact with the owner in an attempt to correct those. I would say that if something didn't get corrected in the normal process, we would take it through a court process. That would be under mostly Board of Health. I feel like some of the unsafe violations that you're referring to are going to be in the venue that if the building department is identifying some life-threatening safety issues and the owner is not making those changes and not responding, that's kind of your last option. You're not coming out of the gate with that. That's somebody that is not being responsive, and so now we're trying to get their attention by doing a violation fine.
Okay, all right.
Does that clarify?
No, that's perfect.
Okay.
I was just kind of taken aback, thinking a lot of cities that I believe they'd have make that a per diem fine in some cases, like you said, because it's only using those extreme examples, so they really look to penalize somebody who's sticking their nose up to the...
Right. Somebody that is not working with the department, unfortunately, it does happen sometimes. And you go through court, there's that process, that's time consuming. You have to involve town council, but sometimes you can go through the whole court process, you can get the decision upheld in court, and then people still don't pay attention, and then you have to...
Go back to square one.
Yeah, long process.
And one more, the taxi license, that's like a medallion in the city of Worcester, right? Because there's only so many that they can be issued. Does that apply to Uber and all this new economy of
I'm sorry, which one?
taxi licenses?
Okay,
That's more just my general knowledge as well.
Right. Through the chair, I believe that was more specific to taxi.
Taxi.
Yep, that is a separate bylaw specific to the medallions.
Okay,
thank you, Julie.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members or comments? All right, seeing none. I just had one more to Amy, I guess. So with regard to the rabies vaccination violation, about how many cases do you usually see, and what do you foresee using, I guess the extra $25 for however many fines come in? Is there something that it's going towards, or?
So the violation, so when people pay their violation, it goes into the same fund. I'm not exactly sure the account that it goes into, where all citations go into. The MGL that supports that all dogs, cats, ferrets must be rabies vaccinated actually allows a violation up to $100. So 25 is very low. 50 stays pretty consistent with our unlicensed dog violation of $50. Most of these violations and citations that I'm writing come to light when there's already a problem. So we're already working with residents. If we receive a complaint or we pick up an animal and it's not rabies vaccinated, we try to work with them first. The citation is sort of the last step in that. If they're not coming into compliance, sometimes we do have to write that citation. We do have to take court action or something, because obviously a rabies vaccination lapse does create public health concerns. So it is something that we take seriously, that we want to make sure people are compliant with. It's not something that we're going door to door or going through our dog system to try to find people that are in violation, but it usually comes up through either an animal bite investigation or through a complaint regarding an animal. So that number of how many we write varies based usually on complaints or bites, how many we're getting in. But we really are looking to do the increase to make sure that people understand it is a serious violation, that we do need their compliance. And again, we try to work with people first, so this would just be an extra tool in our belt.
Thank you very much. If there are no other comments or questions from board members, entertain a motion to adopt the fine and fee schedule as presented.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Can I have a motion to move up agenda item 6B, the open space and recreation plan?
So moved.
Second.
Made and seconded by roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter? Sorry, I went out of order.
Yes.
And Mr. Wren?
Yes.
I planned on asking you questions too, by the way. I forgot them, so. All right, the chair votes yes. So Adam, thank you for coming up and talking to us again.
No, my pleasure. So over the past year or so, since December last year, almost a year, the Open Space Committee has been meeting about once a month to work on an update of the open space plan. This is the plan as it stands now. It wasn't emailed to you. I think you got a link to the website. It's too big to be emailing or printing out multiple copies unless you really want to. So it's all available online. One of the requirements from the state is to get letters of support from the Board of Selectmen, as well as the Regional Planning Commission, CMRPC. CMRPC received a copy of this last week. I'm going to be asking the planning board at a upcoming meeting for a letter of support. So it's a state requirement. I would like to send this to the state. They must review this. They're going to, no doubt, suggest changes, so we'll be making tweaks to it. And then we'll be sending off a final copy probably sometime early next year for their approval. Happy to answer questions about it. It's been a pretty public process going forward. The committee's been great. The 6-town residents that have been providing lots of feedback. They know what they want in their town for open space and recreation.
Board members have questions or comments?
Through the chair, if I also may just note that Selectman Scott Wren serves on the committee as your representative, who was appointed, volunteered for this back about a year ago. So we want to thank you for all your input.
Well, I want to thank our chair, Dominique. She was phenomenal, and the work Adam did. That was a lot of work that he did for us. It was, we solicited a lot of input from the community, but to pile through that document, word for word, I was impressed. I can only imagine the hours you have into it, but I'm guessing it's 80 plus hours. Good work.
Thanks. Seeing as there are no other questions, I just wanted to comment that I was trying to skim through it this week as quickly as I could because it is a massive document. So thank you to Mr. Wren and to you for putting in all of the work to it. And thank you for going out and getting citizen feedback and actually running the surveys too. Hopefully that there was a lot of useful information from those. So thank you. Since there are no other comments or questions, is there a motion?
I make a motion that we issue a letter of support for the 2021 Open Space and Recreation Plan.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded by roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter? Mr. Wren?
Yes.
And I'll try again. Mr. Carpenter? Oh, you stepped away. The chair votes yes, so it's only 4 votes yes, but.
Thank you.
Thank you. Also, if I may, Mr. Chair, I want to thank the whole committee, because I know how many meetings you all had as well, and Adam does a phenomenal job. Just so you know, also, this is really a critical document to update, because I believe they each have a 5-year life. So we did the first one, 5 years ago. What this means is that we're now eligible, as long as you have an approved open space plan, you're eligible to apply for certain grants through DCR for parks and playgrounds. So it's really important to keep it updated. It's also just a great vision document for where we want to be. So thank you all for your work on it.
And in an attempt to get Darlene out, is there a motion to move up agenda item 6A?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to just introduce, this is Colleen Hines, our solid waste and recycling coordinator, works in DDIS and is doing a bang-up job. So before you, you have a proposal for solid waste fee increase recommendation. And in your packets, we wanted to provide you with the really kind of the finished product of what the Solid Waste Advisory Committee and our team have been working on for a while. Over the past several years, solid waste fees, we looked at them in 2019, and in 2019 there was an increase in fees. However, prior to that, it was nearly 10 years before the fees had increased, and over time, this is something that we really are trying to pay closer attention to. So our committee and our staff are really trying to drill down what we can do to give the residents and people on the municipal trash program the tools in order to put our, anything that's set out at the curb for trash and recycling, having the most amount of information to do it right. Contamination is a big deal now, and over the past 3 to 4 years, that has really driven cost. So I just wanted to, let you know, Colleen is literally out every day, driving the routes, identifying any issues that we see at the curb, and using the opportunities to use education materials we've got through DEP grants to be able to provide people the tools to help them know what has to be in the trash or recycling or what needs to be taken out. So as a result of the kind of looking at the fees and what's driving costs, we had a review of the solid waste fees, looking at both direct and indirect costs, working close with Ed and his office in trying to come up with something that truly covers the cost so that the town is not subsidizing the solid waste fees, because not everybody is on the municipal program. So we have over 5,100 people on the program. It's not required. If you're a resident and you move to town, you don't have to be on the municipal system, although we think it's a great system, and we feel very strongly it's a great service. And this is something that over the years, kind of that indirect cost has kind of become more something that we need to have a closer handle on. So working through that, we have come up with a recommendation on the solid waste fees, kind of taking a look at kind of all the factors. We are in a new contract as of last year. We're in a 3-year contract with a brand-new hauler. This is something we kind of talk about often. We're very happy. We feel like we made the right move for the town and for the residents, trying to put more customer service back into being on the forefront. So those are things that we have incorporated into the contract language, and feel like we're in a better position. Looking at that, looking at the, obviously in the past year and a half, more people have been home. The tonnage has gone up considerably with people being home. We've had over 300 more tons from 19 to 20. So kind of looking at like overall, looking at the years and seeing that, what that's going towards. So, working with the solid waste committee, really kind of trying to drill down what we could do. After we raised the fee in 2019, we got a lot of feedback from the residents, which really helped us. And over the past couple of years, we've kind of looked at what we could do to try to give some relief. And one of the biggest things that we heard was that a 2-family house was not able to have like a small carts. So if you have a 2-family in town right now, you have to go with a large service. So that's two large 64-gallon trash carts, and then 2 large 96-gallon recycling. We incorporated into this recommendation that you see before you, we actually have now a small service. That's a really nice, kind of listening to what the residents wanted and kind of coming up with something. We realized we run the risk that we may lose some money, by going and just offering the smaller size, but also taking into account that if it's also a balance of less money, less trash. So we have to look at what we're paying for tonnage and the cost of recycling for processing. That was one of the things that was important to the solid waste committee. The other one was, I think I've told you this before, but just having an understanding with the multifamilies. Often what we see at the curbside with multis is a lot of things that are in the toters that aren't supposed to be. It might be an owner that maybe doesn't live on site, and we have tenants there that may not understand the whole rules and regulations. So Colleen and our staff spend a good amount of time trying to bring multifamilies into compliance. So trying to look at that and look how other towns handle it. Over the past several years, there has always been a major difference between a single family, and then if you were to think of it just a single family home, and then what a 2, 3, or 4 family. It actually doesn't equate to what you'd pay for single family times 4. So they wanted to bring that more in line with what the actual services. So that was an important piece too that you'll see on the here. Down below, we do have, there's approximately about 40 people that have exempt, so they get a discount on the trash, meeting certain criteria. A lot of our seniors and folks that qualify for that, so those are listed there as well. So I'm happy to answer any questions or Colleen on what is before you.
Questions or comments? Mr. Carpenter, any questions or comments?
I do, actually. I know everybody's shocked that I have questions. I have kind of followed this, watching the meetings, and I think, I have a much more level of comfort having watched the meetings with what's presented tonight. So I thank, the staff and the committee for all the work that they put in ahead of presenting this to us. I am concerned about the indirect cost piece of this, and I was wondering if there's an industry standard of how these costs are identified and what the ratio is.
So I'd be happy to take a crack at that question. So, Mr. Carpenter, I can tell you that we examined this as though it was being treated as an enterprise account. And under that analysis, we tried to set a fee that provides for total cost recovery of not only the direct cost, but the indirect cost. When we're calculating indirect cost, it's a prescribed methodology, one of the prescribed methodologies, to use the solid waste budget as a percentage of the total general fund budget, and then use that as a multiplier against certain budgets within those departments that are providing costs to support this program. There are other costs that we can measure by an actual basis. For instance, we know that Medicare, which the town pays 0.145% of total wages paid for those employees who are working under this program. That's a measure that we actually can put a number on. The others we're using, and I don't have an indirect cost sheet, but I believe the total cost, do you have that, Darlene? What are we using?
Yeah, so we were using the offset deficit.
No, can I see that sheet for 1 second?
Yeah, this is the,
So as we look at the total budget of solid waste as it relates to the total general fund operating budget, it's just under 2%, 1.93. So we're using 1.93 in most cases as an indirect cost, for instance, for legal, for MIS, for unemployment comp, for audit, for OPEB. Knowing that there are other departments that provide more of a share of their resources above 1.93. And we came to that conclusion as a result of discussions I had directly with Darlene and Eileen and Colleen in terms of what additional support costs are above 1.93%. We know the health department is providing about 20% of their workload towards solid waste on a day-to-day basis. We estimate that the treasurer collector, based upon the number of bills that go out, based upon collections, based upon liens, they're providing about 10%, and our office is providing about 7%. It's not an exact number, it's an estimate. I would probably say, based upon conversations I had with all those individuals, that is somewhat conservative. We could justify a higher rate of indirect costs, but we're not. We're not looking to make money on this, we're looking to cover our costs, and that's the methodology we use behind that. So I hope that answers any questions you have. I don't know if you have anything directly that you want to ask based upon that explanation.
Just one follow-up, Mr. Chairman, if I could. Is this going to be a yearly adjustment that we're going to, because I know prior to 2019, there was a long period where we didn't have an increase in trash fees. So now we obviously within a 2-year period, understandable based on the explanations that have been provided. So, but is this a yearly adjustment that for indirect costs that we're going to be, that users of the service service should factor into their budget?
So that's a great question, and we gave that a lot of thought, and we deliberated over that for a period of time. I think the consensus was we wanted to make this recommendation and not bring anything back to the board for a 3-year period. So we recognize that there will be increase in cost contractually as things currently stand now. We know that there is a contractual index or a CPI associated with the collection, as well as the disposal at Wheelabrator. So we try to provide a fee structure that would account for those increases over the next 3 years and not bring anything back to the board. We also recognize that there's going to be an index on the indirects as well. That would be pretty standard on all operating budgets, whether it be for solid waste related activities or any other activities. There's always a inflationary factor that we have to provide for.
That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Berthium.
So based on that being a 3-year period, and it looks to me like it's approximately $170,000 per year. So we're looking at $510,000 over the 3 years.
No, this would be a one-time increase. This isn't a $170,000 annual increase.
It's a one-time increase, but that increase happens every year for the next 3. In other words, it doesn't increase again, but the people are paying basically, according to this, it's showing that we're not paying a third of the $169,500. We're increasing for the 12-month period based on the single family, 11,511, all the way down to a total of 170,000. So 170,000 is what we're paying more this year, and we're still paying it again more next year, even though we're in a contract with, for the 3 years or whatever. And then we're paying it again the next year. So it accumulates to the trash consumer of $510,000, the way I'm reading it over 3 years. And so if you were to say to me, we're going to increase this, and now it's 170,000 because we're trying to recover 170,000 of operational, but we don't plan to increase it again for 3 years, then I would take that increase and divide it by 3 and charge it over the next 3 years.
So if you take a snapshot today, expenses are exceeding revenue by about 150,000
per year.
Per year.
Okay,
so this recommendation for roughly 169, call it 170, would account for annual increases in years 2 and 3. So what you're seeing for a fee here would remain constant. For the next 3 years, we would have income of roughly 1.431 million. It's not going to grow every year. We're just trying to, so we don't have to come back every year and make a recommendation for a fee increase. We're trying to do it all up front, providing for an expectation that there's going to be growth on the expense side that we've already accounted for in this recommendation.
So in that 4th year, there'll be growth that we're going to obviously have to come back and increase again at that point.
Let me say this, if for some reason there is, and we'll be monitoring this on an annual basis. We don't want to come back to the board for a 3-year period. But let's say there is a reduction in tonnage at the wheel for whatever reason. And our costs go down, which means our indirect costs will go down as well. We would suggest coming back for a reduction in fee. But we're not, the way it's trending, we're not seeing it, because right now there's a cost for recyclables that we have to absorb that was never part of the equation years ago. That's the moving target. Despite that, there could be an increase, there could be a change in market conditions that could move this thing either way. We try to provide for a best estimate that would carry us through a 3-year period.
Thank you.
Other questions or comments from board members? So I have one related to the single family, the small trash toter. So when this fee goes into effect, we might see some people with a single family with a large toter not really want to pay the extra fee and start thinking, okay, I don't use trash that much. I can handle a small one. What's the process for them to switch to a single family small trash toter? And do you foresee a lot of families doing that?
Sure, thank you for the question. So we did, when we looked at this a couple of years ago, we did have movement like that. So there was initially people reaching out to our office to be able to, really kind of look and say, I really don't think I need this large size. And we did have people make changes like that. For those changes, we do have a service form that we've redone. So Colleen has really kind of worked on spending time on redoing all the forms, request forms. So we have a request form for that. The form would come through our office. Colleen processes that. And then we make contact with typically once a week, those changes are made by our hauler. So that goes out, the change is made, and then the modification for the service is also made. But as you know, we do billing twice a year. So billing would be coming up in December. So it's typically December and June that we send out billing. But that modification comes through our office. Colleen processes that, and then we make contact to be able to switch the toters out. There is a fee that we get charged from the hauler. So there's a fee for switching out the toters. It's a one-time fee, $25. Yeah, so it's $25 to switch the carts out.
Is that a $25 fee no matter where you are? Say so now that we've added the two-family one, so if they were to switch also, is it a $25 fee for them as well?
Yeah, so any switching out of the carts is $25. But that is like when you're changing the service.
Okay.
Does that answer what you're asking?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. So if a family wanted to switch, they would have to do it before December to not hit this initial fee, right?
Yeah, obviously, we do expect if this recommendation does get voted through, we do expect there would be some changes made, and certainly that would be something that we would process through our office. Happy to do that.
Can we, if it passes through the board tonight, have some kind of, through social media, put out there to let people know? I mean, they only have about a month, but, or a month and change, but just to give some kind of a heads up in case anyone wants to pay the $25 fee and switch before they get that initial bill.
Sure, absolutely. It is something that I'm very proud to say Colleen is a whiz at social media, and we spend a lot of time looking at education, and we put that out. Hopefully you see that. She's very good at what she does.
Great. Through the chair, your whole office is great at social media.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before we take a vote, any other comments or questions from board members? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the Solid Waste Advisory Committee's recommendation for solid waste fee increases as presented.
Second.
By roll call vote, Ms. Ruckley?
Yes.
Ms. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Agenda item F, we have a vote to set the classification hearing on Monday, November 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. For members, the reason that we're looking at 7 p.m. is at our November 8th meeting, you might recall there was a vacancy on the library board of trustees, so we'll have to have a joint meeting again to appoint a member. I'll let the town manager talk about that if you want to go into detail about the.
Certainly, thank you. So as the deadline was Friday, and as of Friday, we actually have 2 applicants for the Library Board of Trustees, which is great. So Sharon reached out to the chair of the Library Board of Trustees to ask if they would be able to have a joint meeting at 6:35, because we had an advertised public hearing for 6:30, so 6:35. And that, hopefully, between the 2 applicants, we did get that second application on Friday. So hopefully the 2 boards could do the interview. You know, we figured that would be a maximum of 10 minutes each, which should be enough time to ask the questions, even 5-6 minutes each. And then finish up, take the vote to appoint, and then go into the tax classification hearing at 7.
So I don't know if board members have any conflicts. It's an important meeting, so I want to make sure everyone's able to make November 8th at 7. But if there are no conflicts, that time works. Seeing none, Mr. Carpenter? Getting some feedback, so I don't know if he was there. Mr. Carpenter? I hope that means he's okay with November 7th or 8th.
Through the chair, that is a night that you normally would be meeting anyway. We didn't choose another night, so it is the second.
So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that we set the tax classification hearing on Monday, November 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. By roll call vote, Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter? Mr. Carpenter?
Sorry, no, I don't have any conflicts that I know of as now.
Okay. So the motion's been made by Mr. Berthium and seconded by Mr. Ruffey to have the hearing on November 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. And we were taking a roll call vote. So that in favor?
I'm not sure if he realizes
That it's on him. Yeah. So Dan, we just voted, but I'm waiting on you for the timing to set the classification hearing.
Sorry. There's a bit of a delay here, so yes.
Okay, thank you. The chair votes yes.
Thank you.
All right, gift acceptances, we have none. Proclamations and recognitions, we have none. We have a vote to authorize the town manager to accept and expend $4,600 from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency.
Through the chair, thank you. This is our annual EMPG grant that we apply for every year through MEMA, and it funds 50% of our Code Red service. So the grant application is due on October 29th, so this week. I'll be finalizing that, just waiting to get the final quote from Code Red, because I know the service went up a little bit. They are on the state bid list, but the grant, this is a formula grant, so this is the amount that we get. And then if there's any excess that is over and above the 50% toward the grant, we can put it toward M&R, which is maintenance and repair. In other words, we can get paper if we need to. We can get boards. We can put it toward our management of the grant. It's usually about $50 extra.
Do board members have questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to accept as presented.
Second. Motion's been made and seconded by a roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Tabled items, we have none. And under Board of Selectmen member items, we have an email from Mr. Carpenter. on discussion and potential vote for public meetings about priorities and spending the federal and state funds. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Mr. Carpenter, to talk about.
I don't have much more to add to what my one-liner has. I think we all know that, the town has $5+ million to spend. I know we received a memo last meeting outlining some potential recommendations. I think it would be positive to seek public input as to what the money should be spent on. And it's also an opportunity for the town to let people know, provide them an opportunity to understand how they arrived at these recommendations, the kind of obstacles, that these funds present. And so that was why I thought it would be a good idea to ask town administration to do that.
Thank you. That I don't know if town administration has anything to add with regard to.
Through the chair, we'll just wait and see what the board wants to do. I do want to say, I think it's a good idea to always get public input. I know some communities have had some public meetings. Some of them have just done it for a portion of the money. I think a lot of it is the education piece, because I think it's important the public, sorry, I should have pulled this down. I'm sorry, the public, as well as us, this is a really difficult concept to understand because the regulations from the U.S. Treasury are changing often. So I think we just want to make sure we don't set expectations of the public that there's broad use of these dollars when there isn't. They're very specific, and the documentation is even more specific than the uses. So basically, there's 5 categories of uses, and within those categories, again, from our perspective, we were just trying to recommend things that items that had an impact on the most people in our population as opposed to a smaller group, and also looking financially to potentially take some things off of our CIP down the road. So we would save all of the taxpayer dollars by not having to pay for certain improvements. And if we can explain that to the public, that's probably a good thing. I did look at a couple of other communities, and the majority of them did hold the Board of Selectmen held a meeting, in which case we're happy, obviously as town administration, we would do the presentation, but it was held as a Board of Selectmen meeting to solicit the input with the town administration and providing the details of what the dollars are, as Mr. Carpenter said, what they can be used for and what our recommendation is. And I did notice a couple of communities put out an online survey. Again, I want to look more at those surveys because I don't want to set expectations in the community where you put out a survey and you get back information, but it's not an eligible expenditure. So we can take a look and see how that could work.
I just wanted to also add that one of the things I talked about with Mr. Carpenter when we talked about this outside of a meeting was that I was afraid of really cluttering our meetings with having, depending on how much public input we have, there are a lot of people that want to be heard, and I didn't want to bog down the other things that we have going on in our meetings and holding people really late. So I had asked about moving it to outside of our regularly scheduled meetings, and the town manager actually pointed out that in November we do have a 5th Monday that we could schedule, if need be, just for soliciting public information. So I think that's a really good idea. And then we can go from there also to see how many people we get, and also using surveys. I know we've used surveys before, open space used surveys. Mr. Carpenter and I used surveys when we were doing the voter turnout. So surveys are a good way of also getting feedback. So I do like the idea of getting public feedback, and if we can do it outside of a regularly scheduled meeting, I think that's even better. But either way, I think this is a good idea and I support it. So I don't know if board members have any other questions, comments, concerns.
Yeah, I support it as well. Anytime one of my fellow colleagues here on the board wants to invite public comment, I completely agree with it. But to Julie's point, I want to make sure that we structure it in such a way that it's not inviting the public to come and just have a discussion about Rotary Beach with the funds. I think that it should be a presentation given by the town and then have it open to public input as to the needs that have been identified, I think that'd just be a more productive use of the time, and including with reaching out for surveys and giving options of what the ARPA funds are available for. I think there has to be a point of education before a fruitful discussion could happen. And I think if we just opened it up, I think we'd be misleading the public anyway as to what would come from such a discussion.
So from, I think what I understand, we can take a vote tonight to ask town administration to come up with some kind of presentation that might include maybe something, even if it's a brief PowerPoint or bullets before a survey as well, if we wanted to put out a survey on top of having the presentation and public input. Would something like that help? Would you go in both directions at the same time, or would you prefer a more narrow?
I think, sorry, through the chair, I think we could work toward the target date. That fifth Monday is November 29th. We could work toward that. And I just wholeheartedly agree. I think the most important piece of this is the education piece, because it is a lot of money. We want people to understand what it can be used for, what it's there for, and why we made our recommendations. And then, to Mr. Wren's point, solicit public input, hopefully keep the kind of narrow, the focus on that. Of course, if someone has an idea that we didn't consider, that's an eligible use, it's a great opportunity to hear those ideas as well. But I do think you have to set the parameters for what the program is. We had a meeting today with AYFS. As you know, you all took a vote to give $60,000 to AYFS, and just the amount of documentation that's going to be required is a challenge. So we're all still working through that. This is our first time, all of us, doing this with the ARPA funds. So we just want to make sure that we're following the regulations and we don't come back down the road with any kind of audit and have to have a clawback where we have to pay back any of the money because we didn't follow the appropriate documentation. So that's a big piece of this that we're still working through. But I think by November 29th, we could certainly have a meeting to present what our findings are, what the program is, what the parameters are, and see if anyone has any ideas that we could consider outside of some of the things that we already looked at. Does that make sense?
Yes, yeah, I think that it does. Any other comments, board members? Seeing none, have a motion to ask town administration to prepare a presentation and I guess to schedule a meeting on November 29th.
I'll make the motion, so moved.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded by a roll call vote. Mrs. Ruffey?
Yes.
Mr. Berthium?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter? I'm sorry, Dan, did you?
I didn't hear the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, okay. The motion was to have town administration prepare a presentation for the general public and the board on November 29th, and to use that meeting to solicit public input.
I probably should have.
Future meetings could be based off of that one meeting, or what are we thinking, I guess, is... I think if we keep a lot of information at one meeting and then say, well, this is what we were thinking of spending the money on, which, again, I'm not arguing whether they should be spent on that or they shouldn't be spent on that. But if the goal is, in addition to education, soliciting input or support from the public, it might need to be a two-part meeting. Give them the education, let them go away, come back, or some other means of communicating.
So I think we were being really specific with what, I guess, yeah, you only said state and federal funds. Yeah, we were, for this meeting, being more specific with what funds we were soliciting input from. So I think we can go from the 29th to gauge public input, see how many people come in to speak. If it's really successful, I think we can go on from there and have another meeting after that. And we can continue the discussion if you want to make this a regular attempt on the board to solicit public input on state and federal funds. That makes sense.
I don't necessarily think that the board is the important piece of this particular triangle. I think it's town administration and the public. And we may be the vehicle, our meeting may be the vehicle for it, but it can certainly doesn't need to be within one of our meetings per se. I think it's great that, the meeting would be, our fifth meeting is fine. I just, would suggest that there be some avenue for input after the meeting as people go home and they think about things. And I know, there's concern that people will offer ideas that don't fit the programs, but I think it's very important to get that and have that shared with the board and other or even staff at that point, if there's anything that would bear repeating.
Okay, I think I understand what you're getting at a little bit better now. So if we had something at the end of the meeting, either a form that people from the public could take home or people participating virtually could fill out and return or submit at a later time, with that, do you think that would be what you were going for?
Yeah, I think that's what we typically, when you look at the open space plan or the master plan or some of the other plans that we've done, there's always been that piece after the meeting. You're soliciting it for those people in the room. Hopefully, with the meeting being held, more people will get to see it on playback too, so that they might weigh in, so just that there's an avenue for that to happen.
Okay. Mr. Wren, would you amend your motion to include a form be created, virtually and in print, I guess, for people that attend the meeting to submit after if ideas come to them?
So moved.
And
Second.
Thank you. All right. So with that new motion, by roll call vote, Mrs. Ruffley?
Yes.
Mr. Bertheum?
Yes.
Mr. Carpenter?
Yes.
Mr. Wren?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. All right. Thank you for that. We also have the minutes from our September 13th, 2021 meeting. Are there any corrections or omissions? Seeing none, I'll accept them. And is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Good night, everyone.
Night.